Pay attention to this parking garage security footage from Seattle's Harborview Medical Center. The man pointing a handgun is 34-year-old Marcus Brennan, a high school chemistry teacher. The woman facing him in front of her silver sedan is Dr. Elena Vasquez, a 46-year-old vascular surgeon. What she didn't know is that these were the final moments of her life. On February 8, 2022, Seattle police received a 911 call from the hospital parking garage. A surgeon had been shot 3 times at close range. The shooter didn't flee. He sat on the concrete beside her body, weapon in his lap, and waited for police. When they arrived, his first words were, "She killed Amy. I gave her a chance to apologize. She didn't." Amy Sullivan was 29 years old and finally getting her life together. After years working retail jobs, she'd just been accepted into the University of Washington's nursing program. A 3.9 GPA from community college had earned her a full scholarship. She worked as a medical assistant at a family practice in Ballard, earning $42,000 annually. It wasn't much, but she was building towards something. She'd met Marcus Brennan at a bookstore in 2019. He taught AP Chemistry at Roosevelt High School, made $68,000 a year, and had the kind of steady, quiet presence that made Amy feel safe. They moved in together after 6 months, a studio apartment in Fremont with a view of the Ship Canal. Every Sunday they tried new recipes together, Marcus attempting his grandmother's Irish soda bread, Amy teaching him to make proper pasta from scratch. It was simple. It was enough. In October 2021, Amy noticed persistent pain in her left leg. She ignored it for weeks. She didn't have great insurance and doctor visits were expensive. By early November, the pain was unbearable. Her primary care physician ordered an ultrasound. Deep vein thrombosis. A blood clot in her left femoral vein, extending from her thigh into her pelvis. Dangerous but treatable. Her doctor referred her to Dr. Elena Vasquez, one of Seattle's top vascular surgeons. Marcus researched Dr. Vasquez extensively. 15 years of experience, published in major medical journals. A 94% success rate on complex vascular procedures. Amy was scared, but Marcus felt confident. They were in good hands. They weren't. Dr. Elena Vasquez had earned her reputation through skill and relentless ambition. At 46, she performed over 300 surgeries annually, consulted for medical device companies, and maintained a private practice that generated $850,000 in revenue. She was brilliant, efficient, and chronically overextended. Hospital staff whispered about her schedule. She routinely booked surgeries back-to-back with 15-minute gaps, physically impossible given post-op protocols. She skipped lunch, drank coffee between cases, and often worked 14-hour days. Her surgical outcomes were excellent, but her bedside manner was non-existent. In 2019, a patient filed a complaint. Dr. Vasquez had spent 6 minutes in a pre-op consultation, didn't answer questions, and made the patient feel like an inconvenience. The hospital investigated. They found the complaint valid but took no action. Dr. Vasquez generated too much revenue. In 2020, a surgical resident reported concerns about Dr. Vasquez's fatigue affecting her judgment. The resident was quietly reassigned. The issue disappeared. By 2021, Dr. Vasquez was performing surgery on autopilot, mechanically competent but emotionally absent. She no longer saw patients as people. They were procedures, billable hours, obstacles between her and the end of her shift. When Amy Sullivan's referral landed on her desk, Dr. Vasquez saw a routine thrombectomy, a surgery she'd done hundreds of times. She didn't see a 29-year-old nursing student with her whole life ahead of her. On November 18, 2021, Marcus and Amy sat in Dr. Vasquez's office for their pre-surgical consultation. Through the door, they could hear her on a phone call, something about a medical conference in San Diego. When she finally entered, Dr. Vasquez was already looking at her phone. She sat down without making eye contact. Amy Sullivan, DVT, left femoral vein. We'll do a catheter-directed thrombolysis, break up the clot, you'll be fine. Surgery is scheduled for December 2nd. Sign here. She slid consent forms across the desk. Marcus cleared his throat. Can you explain the risks? Dr. Vasquez sighed, a sound of profound irritation. Bleeding, infection, reaction to anesthesia, standard surgical risks. It's a routine procedure. What's the success rate? Over 90%. Look, I have another appointment. Do you have any other questions? Amy spoke quietly. Will I be okay? Dr. Vasquez finally looked at her. You'll be fine. This is what I do. Then she stood, consultation over. They had been in her office for 9 minutes. Walking to the car, Marcus felt uneasy. That was rushed. She's busy, Amy said. She's supposed to be one of the best. Marcus wanted to trust that. He tried. December the 2nd, 2021. Amy was admitted at 6 a.m. Marcus kissed her forehead before they wheeled her to pre-op. See you in a few hours, he said. Dr. Vasquez arrived at 7:45 a.m., running late from a previous surgery that had complications. She'd been at the hospital since 5:30 a.m., already exhausted. Amy's procedure was her third of the day. The surgery began at 8:10 a.m. Standard catheter-directed thrombolysis, insert a catheter through the groin, navigate to the clot, inject thrombolytic drugs, break up the clot. Dr. Vasquez had done this hundreds of times. She could do it in her sleep. At 9:22 a.m., while positioning the catheter, Dr. Vasquez punctured Amy's femoral artery. A small tear, but in a critical location. Standard protocol required immediate recognition and repair. But Dr. Vasquez was fatigued, distracted. She didn't notice the subtle change in blood pressure readings. At 9:35 a.m., Amy's blood pressure dropped. Alarms sounded. The anesthesiologist called out numbers. Dr. Vasquez finally saw the arterial bleed, blood pooling in the retroperitoneal space, invisible from the outside, but catastrophic. She attempted emergency repair, but the damage was compounded by the anticoagulants used to treat the original clot. Amy's blood wouldn't clot. The bleeding wouldn't stop. At 10:18 a.m., Amy Sullivan went into cardiac arrest. At 10:33 a.m., she was pronounced dead. Dr. Vasquez stood in the OR, blood on her surgical gown, and felt nothing. Just the flat recognition that she'd made a mistake. It happened. Not often, but it happened. 20 minutes later, she entered the family waiting room where Marcus had been sitting for 2 hours, expecting good news. Marcus stood when Dr. Vasquez entered. Her expression told him everything. Mr. Brennan, I'm very sorry. There were complications during the procedure. We did everything we could, but Amy didn't make it. The words didn't make sense. Routine procedure, 90% success rate. You'll be fine. What happened? There was bleeding we couldn't control. Sometimes these things happen, despite our best efforts. What do you mean bleeding? From what? The surgical site. Her blood wouldn't clot properly due to the anticoagulation therapy. Marcus's mind raced. But you said this was routine. I said it was a routine procedure with standard risks. Bleeding is one of those risks. I'm very sorry for your loss. She turned to leave. Wait, that's it? You're just leaving? Dr. Vasquez stopped but didn't turn around. I have other patients. Someone will be out with paperwork. Then she walked away. Amy had been alive 2 hours ago. The woman who killed her spent less than 90 seconds telling him. Marcus buried Amy on December 9th, 2021. 43 people attended. Her family flew in from Oregon. Marcus stood at the front of the church and couldn't speak. Someone else read the eulogy. 3 weeks later, a hospital bill arrived. $127,400. Insurance covered $89,200. Balance due $30,8200. They were billing him for the surgery that killed her. Marcus used $4,800 from his savings to hire attorney Patricia Morrison, who specialized in medical malpractice. She requested Amy's complete medical records and sent them to Dr. James Whitmore, an independent vascular surgeon. On February the 2nd, 2022, Whitmore's report arrived. Marcus read it sitting in his empty apartment. The femoral artery puncture during catheter insertion represents a technical error. While such injuries can occur, the failure to immediately recognize and address the arterial bleed suggests inadequate monitoring or surgical fatigue. The patient's death was preventable with proper intraoperative awareness and immediate intervention. The surgeon's performance fell below accepted standards of care. Amy should not have died. Morrison filed a malpractice lawsuit seeking $3.2 million. Harborview Medical Center and Dr. Vasquez retained Pemberton, associates, a firm notorious for aggressive defense tactics. They buried Morrison in motions, deposed Marcus for 9 hours, and challenged every detail. In late January 2022, they offered $75,000 with a confidentiality agreement and no admission of wrongdoing. Morrison called Marcus. It's insulting, but malpractice cases are hard to win. Juries trust doctors. If we go to trial, we could lose everything. Marcus understood perfectly. Amy's life was worth $75,000, and silence. No. That night, Marcus decided that if the courts wouldn't hold Dr. Vasquez accountable, he would. Quick pause. Do you think Marcus is justified, or has he crossed a line? Drop your answer below and let me know where you're watching from. If this case has you hooked, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting to the confrontation. Now, let's see what Marcus does next. Marcus spent 3 weeks watching Dr. Vasquez. He documented her schedule, learned her patterns. She left the hospital between 7:01 and 8:00 p.m., always alone, always parked on the 4th floor of the garage. On February 7th, he bought a 6-hour P320 at a gun shop in Renton. No criminal record. 10-day waiting period waived due to a background check loophole. He picked it up the same day. He didn't practice. He didn't need to. This wasn't about accuracy. It was about accountability. On February 8th, Marcus wrote 2 letters. The first detailed Amy's surgery, the expert report, the settlement offer. The second was to Amy's parents. I'm sorry for what I'm about to do, but I can't let her get away with killing Amy. Someone has to care. At 6:45 p.m., he drove to Harborview and waited in his car on the 4th floor. Dr. Vasquez emerged from the hospital elevator at 7:38 p.m., exhausted after another 14-hour shift. She walked toward her silver sedan, keys in hand. Marcus stepped out from between 2 cars, the Sig Sauer already drawn. Dr. Vasquez! She stopped, freezing when she saw the gun. Her keys clattered to the concrete. What do you want? Amy Sullivan, you killed her. Recognition flickered across her face. Mr. Brennan, please, put that down. We can talk about this. I read the expert report. He said her death was preventable, that you made a mistake. Dr. Vasquez raised her hand slowly. Experts always say that in hindsight. Surgery has risks. Amy knew that when she signed the consent form. You spent 9 minutes with us? You didn't explain anything. You just wanted us to sign. I explained the relevant risks. If you wanted a longer conversation, you should have asked more questions. Marcus felt rage building. You're blaming us? I'm saying that bad outcomes happen even with good surgery. It's unfortunate, but it's reality. Now please, put the gun down. Say you're sorry. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry about Amy. No. Say you made a mistake. Say you killed her. Dr. Vasquez's fear turned to indignation. I didn't kill her. She had a complication. There's a difference. The expert report says, I don't care what some hired expert says. I've done this surgery hundreds of times. Sometimes patients die. It's not my fault. Marcus stared at her. Even now, with a gun pointed at her chest, she couldn't admit responsibility, couldn't show remorse, couldn't acknowledge that Amy mattered. You really don't care, do you? Of course I care, but I can't fall apart every time a surgery goes wrong. I'd never be able to operate. Amy wasn't a surgery, she was a person. I know that. Then say her name. Dr. Vasquez hesitated. What? Say Amy's name. She paused, searching her memory. Amy Sullivan. What was she going to school for? Another pause. I don't remember. You don't remember because you never asked. You spent 9 minutes with her, and you never saw her as anything but a procedure. I see dozens of patients every week. I can't remember every detail about... Marcus fired. 3 shots, 2 to the chest, 1 to the abdomen. Dr. Elena Vasquez collapsed against her silver sedan and slid to the concrete. Blood spread across her white coat. She tried to speak. Only a wet gurgle came out. She died 2 minutes later. Marcus sat down beside her body and called 911. I just shot Dr. Elena Vasquez in the Harborview parking garage, 4th floor. I'll be here when you arrive. Seattle police found Marcus sitting cross-legged next to Dr. Vasquez's body, the Sig Sauer on the ground beside him. He surrendered without resistance. Detective Sarah Park executed a search warrant on Marcus's apartment. She found the letters, the expert report, the rejected settlement offer. She read everything in her car. Marcus was a murderer. The law was clear. But Park couldn't shake the feeling that she just read the story of a man systematically failed by institutions meant to prevent exactly this outcome. Marcus Brennan's trial began September 12, 2022. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence: surveillance footage, the weapon, the letters showing premeditation. Deputy DA Richard Torres argued, Marcus Brennan appointed himself judge, jury, and executioner. That's not justice. That's murder. Public defender Nicole Reyes didn't deny the facts. She argued voluntary manslaughter, a killing by a man driven past his breaking point. She presented the expert report, the rushed consultation, the insulting settlement offer. She documented Dr. Vasquez's history, 3 previous malpractice settlements, $150,000 in 2017, $225,000 in 2019, and $180,000 in 2020. Multiple complaints about inadequate patient communication. Against advice, Marcus testified. Reyes asked, "Do you regret killing Dr. Vasquez?" The courtroom held its breath. "I regret that she made it necessary," Marcus said carefully. "I gave her one chance to show remorse, to acknowledge what she'd done. She couldn't even remember that Amy was going to nursing school. If she just cared," his voice broke, "then yes, I regret it, but I'd do it again." The jury deliberated 4 days. Verdict: guilty of second-degree murder, not first-degree, acknowledging provocation, not manslaughter, recognizing premeditation. Sentence: 18 years to life. At sentencing, Amy's mother, Claire Sullivan, read a victim impact statement. She described Amy's dreams, her acceptance to nursing school, the empty chair at family dinners. Then she looked at Marcus. "I don't blame you for what you did. I blame the system that made you feel you had no choice. But my daughter is still gone, and now you're gone too, and nothing changes." Marcus Brennan is incarcerated at Monroe Correctional Complex. He maintains perfect behavior, works in the prison library, helps other inmates with their legal appeals. He will be eligible for parole in 2035, when he's 57. Dr. Vasquez's death led to hospital reforms at Harborview. In 2023, they implemented mandatory fatigue monitoring for surgeons, limited consecutive surgical hours to 10, and required comprehensive pre-op consultations of at least 30 minutes. In a 2024 prison interview, Marcus was asked if killing Dr. Vasquez was worth it. It didn't bring Amy back. It didn't fix anything. But when she said she couldn't remember why Amy was in her office, when she refused to accept responsibility even with a gun to her chest, I knew the system would never hold her accountable. So I did. The interviewer asked, "Do you think Amy would have wanted this?" Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "No, Amy would have forgiven her. Amy was better than me. But I couldn't. I can't." Amy Sullivan is buried at Evergreen Washelli Cemetery in North Seattle. Marcus can't visit. Prisoners aren't granted leave for cemetery visits. Her parents go every month with flowers. The malpractice lawsuit died with Dr. Vasquez. The hospital settled with Marcus for $150,000 to drop all claims, money that sits untouched in an account he can't access from prison. Claire Sullivan advocates for medical transparency laws. In 2024, Washington state passed Amy's Law, requiring surgeons to disclose previous malpractice claims during patient consultations. Medical lobbies fought it hard. It passed anyway. Marcus keeps one photo in his cell, Amy at their apartment, laughing at something he'd said. He looks at it every night before sleep. In 2025, a journalist asked Claire Sullivan if she'd forgiven Dr. Vasquez. "I'm trying," she said. But it's hard to forgive someone who never asked for forgiveness. She never admitted she was wrong, even at the end. Amy Sullivan died December the 2nd, 2021 at 10:33 a.m. from a preventable surgical error never officially acknowledged. Dr. Elena Vasquez died February 8th, 2022 at 7:41 p.m. Shot by a grieving man the system ignored. Both deaths were preventable. Both were tragic. And the question of which tragedy was greater remains unanswered. If this story made you think, share it with someone who needs to see it. Drop a comment telling me your final verdict, justice or murder, and let me know what case I should cover next. Hit subscribe if you want more stories that ask the questions nobody wants to answer. Thanks for watching.